Here we are on the front of our Keystone Bullet. We're going to do a technical tutorial or a walkthrough like a technician would do on the data delivery, going over the components on your unit, how to use them, a few tips along the way. Yours may vary with the name brand component that's on here. You may have a power jack instead of a manual jack, stuff like that. You can find information on those components and more in our HAPS Helpful Hacks section on the Great American RV YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff to our channel to help support what we do for you guys. So we're going to start in the front here. Of course, we have that manual ton jack. It is easily upgraded to a power ton jack if you want. 3 bolts, drop it in, run a wire over to your battery, and that's it. You're also going to have your 7-way plug here in the front. That 7-way plug is going to transfer all your lights from your towing vehicle over to the trailer. We're also going to have a battery charge line in here that's going to pull off the alternator of the vehicle to charge your battery when it's running. Lastly, we're going to have our brake control wire that pulls off of the brake controller, and it senses when you're hitting the brakes, it's going to activate the brakes on your trailer. Now, speaking of brakes, you're also going to have your breakaway cable. Your breakaway cable should be looped in or latched onto your receiver hitch itself where you hook your chains up. Never to the chains themselves or the hitch that's sticking out with the ball, any of that. It should be attached to the vehicle. That way, if something fails with the hitch and the chains and this trailer separates from the vehicle, this cable will pull, and it will pull the pin out of that breakaway box. That breakaway box then activates the brakes on our trailer and brings it to a safe stop. Now, this can only happen if we have a good solid 12-volt battery in there. If it's not charged up enough, those brakes will not activate, so it's important to maintain our battery regularly. Last thing we need to make sure we do is have that pin inserted into that box at all times. Otherwise, it will have your brakes activated. Behind all of that is our dual propane tanks right here. We also have a dual propane regulator to operate them. That dual propane regulator is going to have a selector switch on it. You're going to want to have both of your tanks on. You choose which tank you want to be your primary, turn that selector switch over to that one, and it's going to pull out of that tank only until it runs dry. When it runs dry, you generally get a red indicator on the regulator, and it will automatically start pulling off of that secondary tank, so you're not losing propane in the middle of cooking or showering or anything like that. Now you can go over to that selector switch, swap to that second tank, and that will now be your primary. You can get your other one refilled or replaced. Behind all of that is our battery storage center where we can go ahead and put a couple batteries in. We're also going to have our battery disconnect back here. Battery disconnect is important whenever we are storing our unit. If we're storing it unplugged, we want to leave that battery disconnect off so it's not pulling voltage off of that battery. You have some juice left whenever you go to pick that unit back up. Now, if you're storing it plugged in or using your camper, anything of that nature, anytime you have it plugged in, you want that battery disconnect on. It literally disconnects the battery off of your system so you can save voltage and stuff won't be pulling off of it at the time. You're also going to find a couple of resettable, you're also going to find a couple of automatic resettable 12-volt breakers back here. That means that if they are amping out, they're going to get hot, they're automatically going to reset on their own in the event that something is causing a problem like your slide outs or something like that. So in the event that you have that issue, let it sit for a second, see if you hear it click and reset, and try that slide out again. We have more videos that go over our slide outs. Here on the driver's side of your unit, you have pass-through storage access right here. You're also going to have pre-wiring for your charge controller if you want to upgrade with a solar system. The wiring is already ran. You're also pre-wired for an inverter. An inverter changes 12 volts to 110 to run small appliances. In the event you don't have a 110 hookup or 220 hookup at wherever you're at, you're dry camping, boondocking, something like that, you can use that inverter system to run some of your 110 stuff. Beside it, we have our cable hookup right here. This is if you have part cable, you run that over to there. That'll go out to all your TVs. Below that, we have our fresh water connection and our city water connection. Now, fresh water, we pull that cap off, we take a water hose, we stick it in there, and we can go ahead and fill it up. This is for our onboard fresh tank. We would fill that up and use that once again if we are boondocking or something like that. We kick on our water pump, and that will provide water to all of our fixtures on the interior of our unit. Now, there is a way to drain that water. We'll find that under our unit, that blue line sticking out. We'll go over the location of that shortly. and we want to drain that water out. If it becomes stagnant, anything like that, drain it out if we're not using it so it doesn't become stagnant. Keep in mind also, the more water you put in your unit, the more weight you're adding to your unit. So only put what you may think you need, maybe a little bit more, and so on. Now, if we do have that city water connection at the campsite where we're going, we'll take that water hose, hook it up to our city water connection right here, turn it on. That'll supply water to all of our fixtures and won't have the need for the onboard water storage. Next to that is our tankless water heater by Gerard, giving you endless hot water. We'll go over the operation of that on the inside. It does need 12 volts and propane to operate. The location for your freshwater drain is going to be right in front of your front stabilizer jacks, that blue line sticking out with the valve. Moving down to the rear of our unit, of course, we have our slide out. Slide out has cables on it, top, bottom, both sides. That is our cable slide, operated off a 12-volt motor on the interior. We have a video on cable slides. You might want to check that out in the Haps Helpful Hacks section. On our wall here, we see a vent that is for a hood range vent over the stovetop. If we want to ventilate out, we need to make sure that the two tabs on here are open so that air will actually ventilate out. We store our unit, close those tabs so no insects can build any nest in there. More towards the back, we have our Suburban furnace exhaust that's going to run on propane, 12 volts to power it. The thermostat for that is on the inside. We'll talk about the controls, how that operates when we get in there. Down here, we're going to have our outlet for our sewage, which will include our black tank and our gray tank. Now we'll hook up a hose right here, and that'll go to our sewer port at the campground or dump station, wherever we're at. If we have a sewer port at the campground where we're at, our gray tank can be open all the time. Our gray tank consists of shower and sink water, okay? So that can just free flow out of there, no point in having to hold it in there necessarily. So we can do that. Our black tank, however, that valve needs to be closed all the time until we are ready to dump. Reason being is that's sewage from our toilet. So we have some nasty stuff going in there. We have to have water in that tank all the time. Otherwise, that stuff, those solids will actually dry up, become a poop pyramid, nasty stuff. You don't want to deal with it and having to clean all of that out. So we want to go ahead and leave that valve closed so we're storing water in that tank until we are ready to dump. Now, when we are ready to dump, we have our hose hooked up to the dump station or at our site. We pull this valve open. We have a black tank flush on our unit. We'll hook that water hose up to it, and then we go ahead and kick it on, and that is a spray port on the other side of the tank that will help push any debris, everything else towards this valve and flush out that tank. Once we are satisfied, we turn that black tank flush off, close our black tank valve right here. Then we go on the inside and hold down the pedal on our toilet, putting several gallons of fresh, clean water in there. From there, we drop our chemicals in, and the chemicals will help dispose of anything that's left in that tank. As we're driving down the road, the water will slosh around, clean anything that might have gotten on the sides of it. We can choose to dump it again or add some more chemicals, let it sit until the next time we go camping. Now, we do have some other tips on how to flush our black tank. This one is straight out the owner's manual. We have some other ones on our Haps Helpful Hacks section. Check out black tank flush. Here on the rear of our unit, of course, we are prepped with that Keystone camera ready system if we want to upgrade to a camera system, see behind us while we're traveling or backing up. We have our black tank flush right here for that sewage system we just talked about, and we also have our connection right here. We can pull that cover off, and that is where we can store our sewer hose. Here we have our 30-amp twist lock plug for power to our unit. We want to insert it in there, turn it to the right, lock it in, and tighten up that retainer ring on there so it'll reduce the risk of that being pulled out with kids running around tripping over wires and stuff, because we know it can happen, right? We want to plug that in first, then we plug it into our outlet at the campsite. We want to make sure our ACs are off. We want to plug that in second because we don't want any arcing or anything when we plug it in right here. We want to turn our ACs off so we don't have any surges to those appliances. Now, we have no factory supplied ladder on this unit, but we still need to gain access to our roof. We need to gain access because it is, number one, a walkable roof. We can get up there, but we need to check all our sealant around our vents and everything. We also need to check all of our sealant around our trim, our lights, our windows, all that stuff every 60 to 90 days. Your owner's manual suggests to have it checked or check it yourself. This is considered customer maintenance. If you don't, you're going to allow water into your unit, and manufacturers aren't going to participate in that type of repair. So we have checked that sealant every 60 to 90 days. We need to wash our roof at least twice a year. And we also want to check it after trips to make sure that we didn't scrape any trees or anything like that, poke any holes in our rubber. Now, of course, our rear wall is prepped for a factory ladder if we want to go ahead and purchase one and install it on here. Otherwise, we can get an A-frame ladder, get on that roof, and make sure we're maintaining those sealants on there as well as around the sides of our camper. All right, passenger side, we have our front storage compartment access right here just inside on the wall there. We have 2 switches. That is for our electric stabilizer jacks here in the front and the rear. Now, the way we want to use those is they are stabilizers only, not leveling systems, so we don't want to use it to try to level out our unit. They are not weight bearing for this kind of weight. They are to put on the ground and stabilize your unit, add a little bit of weight to them. We level our unit by using stacker blocks we can purchase at any one of our camping stores. Stack them up, level our unit from left to right as we're backing up. We put them under our tires, and then use our ton jack to level it from front to back. Then we put our stabilizers down. If you put too much weight on them, bend them, break them, strip the motor out, anything like that, manufacturers aren't going to cover that kind of damage because that's not how we're supposed to use them. Now, once again, they are 12 volt operated. If you run into an issue with them, want to disconnect those 12 volts, there's an override on the other side where we stick a jack handle into, and we can manually crank those jacks up or down to get us out of a jam. All right, talking about our awnings, they are 12 volt powered as well as our awning lights. Need battery power once again to operate these. We'll flip a switch, run them out. They are mainly a sunshade. They can protect us from a little rain. When it does rain, or even in general, we want to go ahead and tilt it because we may get dew on our awning, we may get AC runoff from our condensation up there, get on our awning. We want to make sure that water doesn't pool up there. So in order to do that, we have 2 little pins right here. We click those pins in, and then we can adjust our arm and pitch it down. So we want one side leaning, whether it be the front or the back. Both awning arms work the same way. Now, once it does that, you're pretty well good. You want to go ahead and straighten your awning back up whenever you roll it back in for storage. Biggest thing we need to remember, if you're leaving your campsite for an extended period of time, they got a bad storm rolling in, high winds, anything like that, roll your awning in. It will become a parachute. It will collapse even if it's pitched with enough rain. All those things, we want to make sure that we are taking care of it. We don't end up with that insurance claim. Take my advice, roll it in whenever you're not using it for sure. All right, under our awning, we can see our TV mount right here, our outdoor cable antenna hookup, as well as a GFCI protected outlet out here. We'll talk a little bit more about GFCI when we get into the inside and the bathroom where our main breaker is. If we look under here, we have a red and blue line with two valves, one on each line. That is our low point drains we use when we are ready to winterize our unit, drain the water out of our system, add antifreeze if we wish. We have a video on that, or you can refer to your owner's manual. Your entry door is going to have a little bit of resistance to it when you open and close it. That is our friction controlled hinges right here on the door to keep that door from slamming against our wall or on the frame from wind or kids, whatever it may be. We also have our fold out steps here. We need to lubricate these steps on the hinge points. We want to try to use silicone spray rather than WD-40. Dirt, dust, all that stuff sticks to WD-40, makes more grime. It'll lubricate it, but you're going to have more issues with it. So silicone spray is your best bet. Fold up twice, and then they go into that storage compartment, and then we can just fold them out. Now, another important thing is we're going to see a little bit of chipping and stuff of the paint over time. We need to make sure that we paint over those spots so it doesn't begin to rust as well. Walking into our unit straight ahead on the wall on the other side of the bedroom, we'll see our main control panel right here. That main control panel has all of our tank meters right here. If we push these buttons, we'll see the lights pop up on the side and let us know what those levels are. Now, this is a generic panel. You'll see multiple blacks, multiple grays. In comparison to what you actually have, it is a generic panel they're going to put in every unit. So battery, fresh tank, remember that's our onboard storage we use our water pump to pull out of. Our black tank one, our gray tank one are what we use for this unit. Our water pump, that's that 12 volt pump. We kick it on to pull from our fresh tank right there. Now we need to keep in mind this is an on-demand pump. Whenever we turn our faucets on, we're going to hear that pump running, vibrating in there. When we turn our faucets off, shortly after, that pump should shut off. If we notice where the pump continues to run, our faucets are all off, we need to come check, make sure that fresh tank isn't on empty. If it is, shut that water pump off so we don't burn it up. If it has water in it, we need to check and make sure we don't have a leak, kick that pump off and investigate. If we have city water connection, water pump off, no need to have it on if we have that city water connection at our site. We have our porch lights, which is our awning lights, and of course our interior ceiling lights. slide out in and awning in as well as out for the both of those. Down here we have our Suburban thermostat for our furnace, a gas operated appliance that we have outside. This is going to control heat throughout the entire unit. Real simple to use. All the way to the left clicked is off. We kick it on and then we can go ahead and choose what temperature we want it to be at. We have our actual room temperature there at the bottom. We kick it on to whatever we want. When we're ready to shut it down or want it cooler, we go ahead and slide it to the left. Now heat is only going to come out of the floor vents that we have in our unit, such as this one right here, or through our vents down there by the cabinetry. Only our cool air is going to come out of the AC, which we'll talk about next, and just the warm air out the floor. So we have our AC Furrion system with our ceiling assembly controlled from up here. One control knob goes from cold to colder, that's your thermostat. Our other control knob has our fan option with different speeds. Fan is just going to circulate air throughout our unit. It's not going to cool it. Our other option here, if we turn to cool, we have our low, medium, high for our fan speeds, and it will actually cool the air. You're also going to have a heat option on here. If we want to upgrade to a heating element, have it installed in there, then we can have heated air come out of our ceiling assembly up here versus our furnace. We have our filter right here at the top. We pull these two tabs. We can go ahead and access our filter. We want to clean that regularly so we're not restricting air to our AC. And this vent right here, this is our quick dump vent. Well, in this case, this isn't a ducted unit. This vent is our main vent. We want to keep that open all the time so air will be able to cool off this area. If we close it, then air has nowhere to push out on our unit. Below our control center up there, we have our COLP detector. A little green light lets us know that it is powered up. It is wired into our 12-volt system, hardwired in there, so it's going to be powered up all the time. It is going to notify us of CO or LP gas that may be hazardous in our unit, alarm us, let us know we need to evacuate. Now we do need to test that audible alarm before we go camping and make sure that it is working. We're also going to have a smoke detector in our unit, need to do the same thing, and we also need to make sure that that 9-volt battery is powered up in there. Now these do have an expiration date, either printed on the front or the back of them. We need to check that and make sure we're changing it out when that expiration comes around. Our sofa there in the slide can be pulled out into a bed, pull on the bottom, let the back down, and then we can go ahead and do the same to put it back into a couch. In our bedroom, not too much to go over. Storage underneath our bed, privacy curtain. We also have cable antenna outlet right here, as well as a 110 outlet and our backer for our TV. Our dinette booth can drop down into a bed. If we want to go ahead and pull the table off, pull the two poles out, we can place the table on the two bumpers there. Take our back cushions, put them down, we can have more sleeping space. Our TV right here is for entertainment, and up on this one, if you look at the top, we have our coax plate for antenna and cable. We're also going to see a little green light with a button on there. That green light indicates that our antenna boost is on. When the light is off, our antenna boost is off. That little button right there turns it off and on. Antenna boost is when we are scanning for antenna channels. We want to make sure that's on so it amplifies the signal, picks up more channels in our area. If we have cable at the campground, we have it hooked up, we want to turn that off so it doesn't scramble the channels for our cable. So antenna power on for antenna channels, cable, we want to make sure that antenna power is off. As we move into our kitchen, we're going to notice we have a 12-volt fridge in here. We have our travel latch right there. We can go ahead and put on that way. We can make sure our goods don't fly out on that door when we're in travel. Fridge down at the bottom with a temperature controlled knob, as well as one in our freezer on this particular model. One thing that they do not have is a drain tube. So when we store our unit, we're going to end up defrosting our freezer and letting our fridge air out. So we might have some condensation in the fridge, some ice in the freezer. All that's going to turn to water, and we need to make sure we get all that water out. Get a towel, get all that stuff out of there, and let that air out. That reduces opportunity for mold and mildew, number one, but more importantly, it reduces opportunity for that water to leak out and damage our wood components around that fridge. If it does, manufacturers are not going to cover that type of repair. It's considered customer maintenance to defrost and clean our fridge out properly. Over here we have our 110 microwave, our hood vent. Remember the vent outside we talked about? This is it. We need to make sure that it's open outside when we kick that fan on so it'll actually ventilate out. Our 3-burner Furrion cooktop right here. Our glass cover will give us more counter space. This is also how it needs to be when we travel. We flip it up whenever it's time for use. Kick it up, find our knob that we want, turn it to the flame icon. Of course, make sure our propane is on. Click it until it fires up and you're ready to cook. Turn it off. just flip it over to the side. We have high and low on there as well. Whenever we turn that knob on, we're going to notice it turns red. That's to let us know that gas is being emitted out of the system. Little switch here on the side turns them blue. It'll still turn red whenever you kick them on. Kick that switch down, it's also going to light up the oven. Now before we go into the oven, I'm going to tell you about propane on your unit. Generally when customers store their unit, you're turning your propane off, right? Not a problem. Whenever you pull your unit out, you're turning the propane back on, you're going to end up with air in your system. It can also happen when you change out your propane tanks. Now, how do we fix that problem? Well, we come over, we turn our tanks on, we just come over and light that stove. It's as easy as that. It's going to take a little bit longer to light that stove, but after you've done it, you don't have to bleed that air out again until you turn the tanks off or change them out. Again, you might have to bleed it out. But you want to do this before you operate certain gas items like your furnace or your tankless water heater to make sure they don't go into a fault due to air in your systems. This is a much easier process than trying to fight that. Over here we also have our stove, our oven down below our stove, operated by the knob on the right. We turn it to that flame icon. We hold that button down on this in order to light it. We continue to crank that manual spark right there. It lights that oven up. We keep holding it down for about another 15 to 20 seconds, warming up that thermocouple. Then we can let off of it. Our pilot should stay lit. We turn to our desired temperature and that burner rail should light up. If our pilot goes out, we simply go back to that flame icon right there, push the knob down, relight it, hold it down for about another 10 to 15 seconds, and then let off, and that pilot should stay lit on the oven. Over to the left of our sink and down at the bottom, we're going to see our 110 and 12 volt control center right here. Our 110 breakers and our 12 volt fuses, everything is labeled on both sides so we know what to operate. In the event that something's not working, we want to come here first, check for any blown fuses or trip breakers. Also down here, we're going to notice that little vent grade. That is where our converter is. You're going to hear a little fan running in there every now and again whenever you're plugged in. That converter changes 110 voltage to 12 volt charging voltage. So essentially it's a battery charger. Whenever you're plugged in, that system is actually charging your battery. So we got to make sure that disconnect is on. So you hear fan running in there, cooling it. It's perfectly fine. Up here in our kitchen, we're also going to have another GFCI outlet with our reset and test buttons, just like the one we're going to talk about here in our bathroom. Here are in our bathroom, pretty cut and dry, hot and cold on your shower. We do have a little switch up here on our shower head. That is going to be for whenever we are dry camping. If we want to try to conserve the amount of water we're using out of our fresh tank or the amount of water we're putting in our gray tank system, because we don't have a dump, we don't have water, we can go ahead and use that little on-off button on our shower head, and we don't have to worry about trying to find that sweet spot in the hot and cold whenever we're trying to rinse off or anything like that, and conserve the amount of water we're putting into that system. You don't want to use it, you don't have to. If you have city water connection and a drain port, you don't need to. Over here we have our toilet operated by the little pedal right there on the side. That's going to go ahead and flush everything down. We're only putting 4 things in this toilet. Number 1, which is liquids. Number 2, which is solids. Number 3, which is RV toilet paper only, because it will not degrade if we don't get the right toilet paper. Will cause plumbing issues. And number 4 are chemicals to help degrade the sewage that's in there, as well as help it keep smelling nice. So for our toilet, we do our number 1. We can hit that pedal, flush it down, no problem. Number 2, we have solids. We want to go ahead and barely depress that pedal. Water will start flowing into that bowl right there without the valve open, and we want to fill that bowl to half to 3/4 of the way. That way we have enough water in there to flush those solids all the way down to our black tank. If we don't do that, we can cause some plumbing issues in there. Like I said, besides that, we're looking at RV toilet paper and chemicals. Nothing else should be put in that tank. Over here we have our GFCI outlet. This is the main outlet. In all of our wet locations, even outside, you're going to see a little white sticker that says GFCI protected. All of them are protected by this main outlet. In the event they are not working, you're going to come in here and probably see a red light on this outlet. If it is, you want to hit the reset button and see if that resets that system. Everything goes back to working. Now, 2 things mainly that can cause that system to trip is the outlets get wet, or we have too many appliances, griddles, coffee makers, so on and so forth, plugged into those outlets. Want to go ahead and unplug some of that stuff and then try to come reset it. If not, it will reset again right away. Once again, also making sure that those outlets aren't wet too. One more thing before we go to our Gerard tankless water heater. I forgot we do have a fan here in our bathroom. Want to go ahead and turn that on when we take showers. That way we are ventilating the heat and humidity out of here and reduce the risk for mold and mildew. Lastly, we'll talk about our Gerard tankless water heater right now. Here we have our Girard tankless water heater control. We have our Celsius Fahrenheit button right here at the top left to swap between the two types of temperature. We have our on off button, and we have our up and down that will change the temperature that we have set for our unit. Now once we initiate our hot water, you'll see a couple of things happen. You'll see our temperature up here change to our output temperature, which is the temperature of the water coming out of our tankless water heater system. We'll also see a shower head icon at the bottom right. That shows that water is in use. And then we'll see our fan icon on the bottom left, lets us know that our tankless water heater system is initiating. Once we see the flame that pops up in the middle of our unit, that means that our system is actually heating that water, and we'll see that temperature begin to increase. Now these systems only run for 20 minutes before going into a shutoff mode. In the event that you're still using hot water after that point, just turn the hot water off and turn it back on, and it will reinitiate and begin to heat water again.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.